Good morning, everybody. Okay, so I promised 3 books on the Morrigan. These are my reviews. These are the 3 books that, if you're interested in her, if you want to learn more about her, these are the 3 that I absolutely recommend. There's other ones out there, and that's fine. And then some of them are good and some of them are not so great, but that's okay. These are the 3 that I recommend. So, first of all, The Book of the Great Queen by Morpheus, Ravenna. I hope I said that name right. If not, somebody please correct me. And this in our community is referred to as, and I believe that it is the best scholarly book out there on the Morrigan. She really did an excellent job with this book. She not only goes into the Morrigan and the lore that's part of her and breaking that down, but she also talks a lot about the culture of the time and the culture of the people. Um, so if you are looking for a scholarly, something historical, something that um, you're talking about, no UPG really, all it is historical stuff. This is your book. It is really big, very detailed. And what I tell people when they read this book is have a notebook with you, have a highlighter with you. You're going to want them. You're going to want to take notes as you go through. You're going to want to highlight things in this book. It really is like a lesson. Um, but wonderful book, has tons of information in it. Absolute best scholarly book on the Morrigan. Excuse me. So the other 2 books that I'm going to recommend, they're written by one author, and that's Stephanie Woodfield. And I know that everybody's got their own taste. There are reasons why I absolutely love her as an author, and I'll go into them. But first, the first book I would start with is Celtic Lauren Spellcraft of the Dark Goddess. She goes into, it's a fairly decent sized book. She goes into history and lore as well, but she really puts herself into this book. You can really hear the author talking to you. And that's the thing I love about her. Her books just aren't repetitive information that you hear everywhere. Her books really give different insight because she takes it from a point of her experience and how she experienced that. And you really get a sense of what her journey was like. She also gives some wonderful recipes and spells and prayers in here. And she breaks down different aspects of the goddess, not just her war and her battle, not just sovereignty, not just prophecy. She goes in and she shows the reflection of the goddess in different aspects and in different ways. Really, really recommend this book. The last book that I will recommend is The Priestess of the Morrigan, again by Stephanie Woodfield. Out of all my books, this has become my favorite. She really goes into putting everything of herself into this book. And reading through, she details out experiences that she's had. And I love that. I love listening to those kinds of things where you're hearing about somebody else's experience. And so you can look at yours and you can look at theirs and see similarities, you can see differences. I really appreciate that. But I really love this book. I thought it was really wonderful, very well written. And the content and the information really touched me. So, yeah, I would highly recommend the Book of the Great Queen. I think if you follow the Morrigan, if you're connecting to the Morrigan, it is a book that is absolutely necessary um, to get a really good sense, not only of her lore, but how people saw her throughout and how the culture was, and gives you ideas of the people. And that's really important because we can look at historical stuff all day long, but if we don't understand the culture of the people that were um, worshiping or being guided by this deity, then you lose a little bit, I think. I think when we research deities, pantheons, um, traditions, we also need to be studying the history, the culture, the history of the culture, the history of the people, the history of their movement, how they blended with others. This gives us a much bigger view of why they did what they did, and why they believed what they believed, and how we can carry that on today in our current society, because it's changed a lot since then. Something to think about. And again, I highly recommend Stephanie Woodfield's books. You already have a scholarly book in the Book of the Great Queen. Stephanie Woodfield gives you a personalized kind of feel, and it doesn't mean you're going to agree with everything in the books. Rarely do I agree with everything in a book. Actually, I can't even think of one book that I completely agree with everything that they put in there. And that's fine. I get good information. I get pieces and parts and things that really resonate with me. Out of all the books that I've read on the Morrigan, all the blogs and papers and thesis, Stephanie Woodfield is, to me, her writing, her books, the way that she sees the Morrigan is the closest to where how I see and experience. It's not the same by any means, but I can see those reflections in there, and that was really nice. And I love how, she's bold enough and brave enough to put out her personal experiences, knowing that everybody is going to pick them apart, because that's what our community does. But she did an excellent job. And so I highly recommend her books. And I think you will really love the style of writing, as long as you go into it knowing that, this isn't a scholarly book. It is and it isn't. It's got history. It's got, really good information in her books as well. But what you're really, at least for me, what I'm really getting, what I really enjoy, is the personalization that's in here. So that's all I've got for you.